Hey friends, welcome back to Eric Devins Live. This is my live show where I talk to ordinary humans doing amazing things, extraordinary things, you could say. And I'm so super glad that you are here with us. We have an amazing guest. I've been getting to chat with her just a little bit before we got started, and I just know you are going to have so much fun with this conversation. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to be challenged. Well, we all like a little bit of challenge. We need that sometimes, don't we? Just to get pushed a little bit. And we're gonna do that. We're gonna talk about creativity. We've got lots of questions about all of that, where creativity comes from and why do we get stuck sometimes. Lots of that going on, and we'll get there in just a second. Before we do, let me tell you, this show right now, we're live across the internet, across the fruited internet plane, if you want to say. But we are, like, if you want to help us out, the best thing you can do, one, you could share this live stream. Two, you could go to YouTube and just subscribe. Would love that if you do that, and then you'll get a notification. Hit that little bell. You get a notification whenever we're live, which we are endeavoring to do 5 days a week. So that's an undertaking, but we can do it. So I definitely think I want to bring you so much good stuff, and we will. So we have a guest, and I am going to bring her on here in just one moment. Last thing, because we're live, that means you get to be part of this conversation, which I absolutely love. So we've been privileged to have so many good questions from you in the audience, which is the best part. So we're going to talk about creativity. We're going to talk about blocks. We're going to talk about all the things that get in the way, or that we need to, just decisions we need to make. And so maybe you find yourself in that boat. Ask a question. Tell us your story. Give us a little bit, and we will include you and your question at the end. So pay attention, and we will do that. So I'm really excited to invite our guest. Let's just hear about her. So our guest, she's a mental health therapist turned creative strategist. I got to ask her about that because I bet there's a connection there. And an online entrepreneur. She's one of my favorites. She's hosted multiple top-ranking podcasts, conducted over 1,000 interviews. Like, I thought I was doing great with 400, 1,000, right? And collaborated with brands like Old Navy on impactful storytelling. She's been featured in Forbes and Pop-Sugar. She's passionate about helping unconventional leaders amplify their voices, and she combines creative strategy with storytelling to empower others to scale an impact and make a big old difference in their work. I love it. Our guest is Heather Parady. Heather, welcome to the live. I'm so glad that you're here.
What up? Hi. I've got to take out the Forbes thing in my bio because that
Oh
is like
no,
not a thing anymore. Like back in 2010, that was a thing, and now it's like you got $50,
I'd
we be
keep it.
putting you in Forbes.
I'd leave it
So,
there just to be like, hey, you know what?
but
You've
thank
been
you for
featured in
having me. It's
Forbes.
nice
It's
to
great.
be here.
I'm glad that you're here. That's your bio, so I love it. But I think what you deserve to be there. So let's. I want to talk to you about the creative life. We've been chatting about this a little bit. I just think
Mhm.
the creative life is the best life, even if it's also sometimes the most uncomfortable. Right? It can be so hard. You have to take risks. So
Mm.
before we get to that, I want to ask you, because I know you've got a whole business with helping leaders increase visibility, right?
Mhm.
Is that so? Tell me about
Mhm.
that and kind of what you do there, and we'll get into some of your work.
Yeah. So essentially, I know a lot of good people who have a lot of good work, a lot of good offers, and they just don't know how to get eyeballs on it. And usually, people think there are tactical issues and we need the hack, we need the system, and all of that is yes and amen. But what's so wild about it is how much of my work is actually coaching people through the terror and fear of being seen and
Oh
getting
wow.
their face and their voice out there, their message, and stand strong in it. The biggest thing that I hear constantly is, I'm not a self promotion type of person. I don't like to promote myself. And I help people kind of reframe that. You're not promoting yourself. You're not being egotistical. You're not doing anything other than promoting a message that you're passionate about and a solution that people need to hear. And we can get more focused on the message and more passionate about the people we serve, we can overcome a lot of those barriers that keep people out of the spotlight. And as of right now in 2025, the spotlight is still on social, it's still on
Mhm.
evergreen content. That could change. But right now, that's where my focus is at. But the deeper heartbeat of it is to let or get unconventional leaders seen and unashamed.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Well, you said there was so fascinating about the idea of just the shame of like being seen, like that is
Mhm.
why do we feel that way? What is it that like I hear you saying, okay, we're going to reframe it
Lord
to,
Jesus, can you like pull up a chair and grab some coffee? What?
well, you're a
Woo.
therapist, so let's go.
Yeah. Why are we afraid to be seen? Because judgment, looking undone. Looking undone is a huge one. I want you to think that I have it all together, that I'm perfect, that my stuff's always popping, that I don't have insecurities. And showing up requires you to really be seen, which there's an element of that which is messy and imperfect. And, spotlight effect and social psychology, we always think people are paying way closer attention to us than they really are,
Yeah.
right? So we heighten the cost of being seen because our perception is that when Eric sees that I struggle in this area, or maybe, my mascara is not done right, or maybe I mispronounce a word or whatever, I don't come across as so polished, that you're going to discredit me, and that's humiliating people. But the thing is, we take ourselves so seriously, where you're not really paying as close attention to me as I think you are, and B, most of the time people absolutely love the little quirky mishaps and the things about you, and the folks who don't, cool, you know.
Right.
So we want to belong, we don't want to be separated from the tribe. It's embarrassing being a beginner out in front of people. um we just find a lot of value. We place a lot of value in what other people think of us. And the truth is, when you get past a little bit of that, you realize how hard it is to get people to actually pay attention.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So it's funny because a lot of like kind of people who are in the beginner space who are just starting to put out content and so forth, they're like, oh my God, like all these people are going to see me. All what are they going to think? And I'm like, friend, you could put out like 1,800 videos and like your mama will still be like, what are you doing? People aren't paying as close of attention as we think they are.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, when I started my first podcast, some of my guests did not know what a podcast was. Like
Totally.
and they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what are we doing now?" I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, okay, all right." So, and it just takes time to build. I think that's great. Yeah, we all kind of have these delusions of grandeur. Like if I start something, then I'm going to be really big overnight. But it doesn't take that. It usually you have to build.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot
Yeah,
of work.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is, and it's good work, but it's hard work, and that's I think some people don't know that. Um, okay, I wanted to ask you about your podcast is called Unconventional Leaders.
Hmm.
What's a conventional leader, and then how do they go become an unconventional leader? Who are you talking to? Like when you're talking to leaders, like what are you looking for on that show?
Yeah. So originally it was, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago that I started the show Unconventional. And the intention behind that was really from an aesthetic perspective of an unconventional leader. And what I meant by that is when I looked at podcasts and read books, I was new to personal development. I saw one type of person, which was normally a middle aged, white, rich
Mm,
dude,
yeah,
which I love middle-aged, white, rich dudes, like, God bless it, there's nothing wrong with it, but I just didn't see a lot of representation out there, and I was so interested in leadership and this narrative around making something from nothing. So I was always taught that if you see a void and it bothers you, fill it. So I started the show originally seeking out alternative voices in the leadership space who didn't fit the mold. So I interviewed a ton of people who were, had various disabilities or looked different, were completely covered in tattoos, but you had no idea that they were a millionaire on the side and had a side business. And people who were using their voices in inner cities. I mean, just voices that weren't elevated that you didn't necessarily think about as like a buttoned up leader, corporate leader. But as the years have gone on, I think it's loosened a lot my definition of an unconventional leader. It's less about an aesthetic and more about a positioning of a way that you view this world, the way that you lead and use your voice, and less about scalable bottom line,
Mm,
whatever. Again, nothing wrong with that. But I'm called to the people who are here to use their voice creatively and want to spread another message that isn't as hot and sexy, but one of like spirituality and what are
mm,
we doing here on this earth? And I believe in calling and that God's placed a calling on each of our lives. And what is that? And elevating that and fulfilling that. And sometimes that isn't to be this influencer, you know?
yeah.
But this hierarchy of what's important in leadership and business and your brand and so forth, I just want to eliminate that and bring to light that there are just as honorable vocations and angles and art and creativity and platforms that are worth building that may never get the time of day.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. So unconventional is not the stuff that we normally think of a leader in a business suit telling everybody what to do, but leading from a different position.
Why did you say that in like 15 seconds? And I said it in 18. Like that was so good.
My job is to summarize things. So you've been here to serve creatives, and I just summarize everything, I guess.
I love it.
But yeah, that's I think that's great. And it's good. It's good that you did, by the way, because we're here for an hour, so that's great. And it's better
Yeah.
to hear you say it. I want to know. I want to go back a little bit into your story, just a little bit, just a
Oh,
little bit.
God.
I want to talk about creativity, but and friends, if you have questions, and I know you do, lots of my friends are creative. So if you have questions, ask your questions in the chat wherever you see this video, and we'll ask them here in a little bit. But you in your bio, right? You started out as a mental health therapist, right? And I
Mhm.
read
Mhm.
on your website that you wanted to be in ministry, like that was kind of a thing. And so take me on that journey from wanting to be in ministry to being a therapist to being a creative. Just you can give me the highlights. You don't have to go into all the nitty gritty. I know there was some other stuff in there, but like take me on that journey.
I'm just like, I'm shaking my head and laughing because it was more than just a thing. It was what I was the most passionate about
Mm,
from the earliest age was I was going to be in ministry and I was going to be a pastor and save the world for Jesus. Like that was it for me. I remember preaching to my teddy bears. Um,
oh wow.
I went to school, internship, got ordained at one point, so forth. And then through a series of events, changed directions, but still felt really called to help people tactically because it was really confusing leaving ministry and trying to find calling after ministry. Because when that's your whole world and then you're not in it anymore, but you still feel like God has called you to do something, but it's outside of a context.
Yep.
It was scary, very, very scary. So the closest thing I could think of outside of ministry was like, oh, be a therapist, right?
Yeah.
So
So similar skills.
yeah,
It's kind of a still a helping
similar skills.
profession. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I did that. Loved it. I think I was good at it, pretty good at it. But long story short, just I felt this just man, I don't know, I can't explain it. You know that those just few moments in your life where you're like, do not go down this road. Switch lanes.
Yep.
And that's only happened to me a few times, but when it does, it is so strong and it's so scary because everything was lined up for me. I had like the ideal job working with this population I wanted to work with, ideal
Mm,
times, taking care of kids and all of that. But I felt in my gut was like, do not take this job. Go build something on your own. And I was like, what?
yeah.
So long story short, I quit everything, gave up my license, and started tinkering around on the internet trying to figure out what the hell to do.
Yeah.
Started off with production editing. I think that's everybody's kind of baseline where it's just like people are like, hey, can you edit this? I'm like, hell yeah, I can edit this. And I'm like over here Googling, like, how do you edit?
Right.
So just built a freelance business and just built up from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I want to. you don't have to tell a story necessarily, but I want to talk about the concept of that place where when ministry is your identity, because
Mhm.
a lot of my followers are Christian and
Mhm.
grew up sort of similar to I think the way you and I both did, where the best thing you could be is a in ministry somehow, pastor, a ministry,
Mhm.
missionary, or something, and your identity, because what we're really getting at is identity, right? Your
Yeah.
identity had to shift over time. Um, is I'm not sure what my question is, except there's something there that happens. I think it's kind of unhealthy in ministry. I think there's something gets wrapped up in the work instead of in the being of who you are. Is that right? Like, does that relate to? Does that resonate with you at all? Is there? Was that bring up?
Oh, I'm starting to sweat.
Good.
We're gonna have a good time. Here we go. Yeah, man. Yeah. It was honestly a few years after I left church ministry, all that stuff was really some of the darkest period of my life because I literally felt, and I know now it wasn't true. It was just a narrative that was given to me that God had abandoned me and that I was somehow failing at my greatest contribution on earth because it wasn't within a certain context. Um, and to wrap this into creativity, ironically, I believe I found God again and I found calling again through the creative space outside of the church. Because then I started reading all these weird books about creative process and,
Yep.
the muse and all that stuff. And I'm like, that sounds like what I was taught in church, but, us Southern evangelical Christians call that the Holy Spirit.
Right.
People talk about the muse. I'm like, that's the Holy Spirit. That's what my mama would have said. But seriously, I started getting involved in that work and like writing more and being still and trying to let go of like agenda based creation because when I was in ministry, everything was with some kind of agenda. It's like, I need to get you to come here and do this, which again, I'm not here to argue whether that's
Yeah.
right or wrong, but I would show up and create and do things with an agenda in mind. And so going into the creative space, there's less agenda and it's more process oriented where you sit and you express something and sometimes nobody ever sees it. You know what I mean? And if they do, there's not necessarily an agenda like now you need to come over here and do this. It's just an expression. And so through that I was like, wow, I'm re-tapping into hearing God again
Mm.
and understanding like more of a relationship where I'm still seen, I still have a voice here, and there is a whole freaking world out there that I can express some of these things to, and I don't necessarily need a pulpit. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
so it's so weird and airy fairy and woo woo, but I tell people creativity is my new church. That's how, and the
Mm.
reason I'm so passionate about it is because I think it is a way back to your grounding. And it's humbling
Yeah.
because you realize that all along God was a creator. And we
Yes.
kind of got away from like the magic of that.
Yes. So there's a lot of interpretations of what it means to be made in the image of God. I have a master of divinity, so I think about this all the time. But one of those things that I think is integral, regardless, is creativity. Right? God creates and He rests, and then He takes Adam and Eve, at least in the story, and says, "Hey, go name all the animals." Right? Or Adam, right? Go brings all them to Him and sees what He will say. It says, right? Like that's fascinating, right? Um, and so I think when we create, I think what you're saying is when we create, we somehow tap into that like
Mhm,
godness, whatever that is. But it
mhm,
can feel a little woo woo, excuse me, a little ethereal, a little intangible, but that doesn't make it less real, right? It is a
mhm,
thing there. And if you are a creative and you're called to something and you need to do it, I mean, like my experience, I haven't really done a whole lot of interviews for the last 2 years. But here I am. This is the fourth one this week, and I love it. Right, like it's just a new thing. It's like, oh, this is I missed this. I should have been here the whole time. Right. There's a knowing that you can have, and I hear you saying that about, okay, I had this perfect job, and then I just knew somehow that I need to be creative. I need to go in this other. There's another direction I need to go,
Yeah.
um, and it's you mentioned it's scary. What are we afraid of when we do that? When we follow those urges?
Failing in front of everybody, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
looking immature. That was a huge thing for me. We worked, when I say we, I mean my family, they sacrificed too. Um, the years it took me to go through school and all that that entails, and getting, my master's and licensure process and all of that. And then to throw that away and take a chance on doing something different.
right,
It's not, I'm not a 21-year-old kid who's eating ramen who can just take a chance.
right.
I had responsibilities, and I'm not just making chances on my life, I'm taking chances on my family's lives
Yeah,
too. So there is a real cost to going the unconventional path. And also, there's this, again, back to the perception of how are people going to perceive this when I say, you know what, I'm 48 and I really want to be a cartoonist. They'll
right.
be like, that's great, Paul, but how are you going to pay the bills?
Yeah,
Which is valid.
it's
But in
legit
the
for
same
sure.
sense, if you go back to like what we grew up on, which I love the scripture, the gift and the calling of God is irrevocable. I love that scripture because what was placed inside of you is going to nag you forever until you do something with
Yeah,
it. Is it worth paying attention to? And can we trust that if we follow those nudges, I'm not saying be irresponsible and, sacrifice things to your kids and them not having a home. I mean, like there's, you know,
yeah,
being level headed about it. But I don't think we risk enough because, again, that perception of what's really at stake is way, way heightened than what it really is. And really, at the end of the day, for me at least, it was embarrassment. I felt
mm.
like it was embarrassing to admit that I wanted to do something else with my life.
Yeah. Especially after putting in all that work to get a degree, right? Like that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I. Okay.
I mean, it's a story of a lot of people nowadays. I mean, this is so, we live in a cool time. People, this is becoming more and more
Yeah,
popular.
hundred
Quit
percent.
your job, start something else.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, and things don't always end up the way that you thought they were, right? So one of the things I love about my kids, um, he's in a program where he can actually try all the stuff that he wants to do before he gets there in high school, And so if he decides,
Wow,
hey,
that's cool.
I don't like this, he can go do something else, which is a good time to do it. But I bet you picked up some things by studying therapy, studying psychology that help you in creating compelling content. How did that
Mm.
training as a therapist transform the way that you create content?
Listening,
Mm,
listening. Um, that is, I don't know about you, that was one of the hardest things for me to practice and learn is getting still and quiet in the moment and really paying attention to what is being said and what's not being said.
yep.
You know, the ideation process with creativity is really just noticing things. And people who are really tapped in creatively, they're hypersensitive and aware. And I don't believe that's something that just some people are born with. It's something we can develop, but it requires intention and slowing down and being present and all the woo-woo stuff we talk about. But it's
Yep.
wild what you'll actually see and hear when you start paying really, really close attention. So I would say high level, that is the biggest takeaway from that space. And of course, there's all the internal just crap, the chitter chatter inside our internal dialogue that we have to fight and overcome as creators to, like I said at the beginning, really be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you mentioned listening. I think listening is so powerful. incidentally, curiously, maybe, uh, because I'm not in ministry either, right? I thought I was going to be, so I got a master.
Shame on you.
I know, right? What am I doing with my life? So I got a master of divinity. Spent a lot of 9 years to get it, and got the little piece of paper, and it was just a weird time. There's lots of reasons, but I tell you what, one of the things I learned in that process, and in 9 years in a call center, and in a whole bunch of other things, was to listen. I learned studying spiritual direction. It's not therapy exactly, but a big part of it is listening to God, listening to yourself, listening to other people, and what's God doing, the intersection of all those three things. And it's never, if I could do it, it's never steered me wrong, right? It always is a powerful tool that I don't think most people are even close to tapping into. But if you can learn to listen, it helps, and certainly our society needs it, right?
Yeah. Amen.
I love that. Okay, thank you for all of that. I wanted to hear at least a little bit about your story. I'm going to make another call, my friends. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. If you have a question and you want to ask it, I'd love to hear it. We're going to answer some questions here a little bit later on. That's what is this show's about, because I believe in conversations. So this is a conversation right now between me and Heather, but it's also a conversation with you. So I want to bring you in. So if you ask a question, we're going to get to it here in a little bit. So feel free to do that. Okay. I've got a few other questions. I want to dive into creativity, Heather. So I think creativity really is kind of just problem solving and storytelling, which is something that we all do. Do you think creativity? Maybe I think you said this earlier. This is one of my questions, so it works out good. Is creativity something we all have access to? In those kind of realms, or no?
Yes. So I never define creativity like in a scientific way, but I'll give you like the scientific approach for it, which is really creating something novel. Usually it's from other things. And then there'd be some functionality to that. And so there is, like to your point, a level of, there could be problem solving, like a new way of doing things, which we all have an aspect of that. So spreadsheets, you can come up with a creative new way to do something differently there that solves a problem, and that is a form of creativity. So yes, we all have the gift and skill of creativity, and I think it's very telling that so many people immediately disregard their creative skills immediately, when it is a very broad term.
Yeah.
But for some reason, people get very closed off when you start talking about, I'm not creative. Nope. And you're just like, what is the resistance around this? And
don't you think for so many people, that's because in an art class somewhere, or in a music class or a music lesson, they were told you're not very creative?
Yeah, we were shut down.
Yeah.
And again, it's that part of being seen, because if I make something and I show you and you hate it, it can get very personal for people. If I'm sharing my story with you, and maybe the story's fine, but you don't like my accent, which, by the way, a lot of people get really mad at me about my accent. They're like, you are so country. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
It's great.
But there's just something, for whatever reason, I immediately, the tendency would be to shut down, because when you create something, there is a part of yourself inside of that, whether it's your business, your song, whatever it is, and putting that out on display where it's like, hey, stab me in the heart if you want to, or completely reject this.
Yeah.
It is absolutely terrifying. So people are like, I'm not creative, when really, back to what I said at the beginning, they're really just afraid of being seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. That's why at the beginning I was reading that book, and I chose Rejection Proof for this conversation, right? Which is by a guy named Jia Zhang. And I loved some of the principles that I learned in there. One of them was, listen, most of the time rejection isn't even about you, right? Because I think
Preaching.
we put our thing out there, and we're like, hey, okay, it feels like I put my heart out there, and people can just stomp all over it, and sometimes they do. Um, but that has nothing to do with really the work you did or how how much it means to
Right.
you. It has to do with
Right.
how they're responding and what maybe they were told and which is
Right.
probably why they shut down when you try to say, hey, I think you're creative.
Right.
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 um Somewhere that got trampled on, and that was a super helpful book for me. So friends, you should pick it up. So that was you already answered my question. That was my next question, is like, why is it hard to get started? Well, this maybe is a little different. Why is it hard to get started? So like, I watched your video. You had a video recently. You were on a cruise and you made a video, and you're like, I'm gonna make a pivot a little bit. I'm gonna do some new things, and that seemed to me like it maybe took a little while to come to that conclusion. Why do we get stuck sometimes? We don't get started.
Why do we get stuck and not get started? We don't want to be a beginner out loud, and we don't want to fail out loud.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me if you disagree with this. I'm open to hearing it.
Okay.
But my kind of philosophy is that nothing is birthed in its full form, and it requires evolution and iterations.
Yeah.
So, regardless of what you do, it has to go through different iterations. And
Yep.
so when we don't start, we're afraid, oh my God, this isn't going to work. Guess what? It's not going to work. It's not. I tell people
Right.
that all the time. I'm like, when you start, it's not going to work. You know, we had a comedian here, Learn More is in here. What's up, Learn More? Now he's touring all over. You know, he's selling out shows, but when he first got on that stage, he had
Yep.
to work everything out over and over and over again. Why do we think we're better than that? That we don't have to go through the process. But again, we have that spotlight effect. We think everybody's watching us, and they're not. So you have to get to a point where you are okay with sucking.
Yes and amen.
And most
Yes and amen.
people, they're not okay with that, and so their dreams end there. And that's why I believe with all my heart, most people will make it in some regard through that persistence, because just the law of the universe, the way that it's set up,
Yep.
is that persistence and that grit. You may not be super talented, but you're willing to go through those iterations over and over again. That's why you see people are like, they're not that talented, but they're freaking killing it, because they were humble enough to go through that.
Yep. Man, when I speak to podcasters, I talk about iteration all the time. That's something I learned from my coach, Tim Morris. Shout out, Tim. He called it versioning. It's like software gets a new version, right? Like he's like, you can
Yeah.
just get a new one. But we talk about that all the time. And when I talk to podcasters, I tell them, hey, look, don't just like it, your 300th show is not going to be the same as your fourth show, right? Like they're going to
Right.
be very, very different, and that's okay. And I'll be honest, friends, you're watching. This show today that I'm doing with Heather is better than the one I did on Monday with Corey. Not because Corey was fantastic, but I've learned stuff about my technology, about how to ask my
Right.
questions and all that
Right.
stuff that is better. And some of it yesterday, my whole live cut off on Facebook. That was disappointing. That was embarrassing, right? Not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I learned how to, okay, I'm going to restart my computer today and let's see what else we can do to make sure everything is going to work. Those are all the things that you do, and I couldn't have known those or anticipated those without just
Yeah.
experiencing them first. And
And
yeah,
here's
go
and
ahead.
here's tough pill to swallow. There you go. I've had to come to terms with I'm not good enough yet
Mm,
a lot.
yeah,
Where sometimes I get my feelings hurt because I'm like, I work so hard, I try so hard, and you know, my some of my goals, a lot of my goals that I have, haven't been reached yet. But I've been doing this for 5 years. I've been doing this for 6 years, and I really having to come to terms with, Heather, maybe you're not good enough yet, and maybe that's okay.
mm,
Maybe it's going to take you 20 years to become excellent at what you do. Or do you love it that much that you're willing to do it? Instead of getting my feelings hurt about it, that's what people talk about, falling in love with the process. Like, do you really
yeah,
love doing this, Heather? Because a marriage isn't like, it's a commitment. And I believe we're married to a lot of our creative work. And that takes growth and it takes process and it sucks, you know? But that's the game if we say we really want to do it. And I tell people a lot, like, you should probably just quit. Like, I tell people a lot, they should quit because I can tell that it's not something they're really passionate about. Because I don't know about you, even if no one ever listens or watches anything I ever do again, I really love the creation process and I
Yeah.
really love making the stuff that I make. Um, and there's been many times nobody watches it or listens to it, but I freaking Saturday night I'm in there editing,
Yeah.
you know?
There's those there. That is how you know, right? I think there's so much there when you're like, I just got to do it, which has been interesting this week. I've been like, I gotta go. I got a few more things I could do. I'm gonna go back down to my office and work on it. Right?
Yeah.
There's more stuff I could do. There's that drive that comes from just desiring to do it and enjoying the work, which is different than building the audience. I think we have a skewed idea with social media of what build audience can be like.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's another thing too is comparing your project, your creative work to the age of a human.
Yeah.
So if I've been podcasting for 6, 7 years, that means it's 6 or 7 years old, which
Yep.
6 and 7-year-old are still going to bed by at 8 o'clock, still getting in trouble, still wet in the bed sometimes. I don't know what age that stops, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like the natural development of a human, we give grace to, but we don't give the natural development of our projects the same, that maybe it's just young.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe we need to grow and we need to iterate a little bit. That's one thing.
Hmm.
I love my show halfway there. And I found I needed to grow a little bit outside of it, right? And maybe and that's okay. Um, Interesting. Okay, I want to ask you some questions about storytelling, and then we're going to get to your questions, friends. So we got some questions. Can't wait to hear them. So be sure to put them in the chat and wherever you're watching this: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Post them there. We'll be able to see. So, but you're an excellent storyteller, and I think where did I see? I think it was on your website. You have a quote that Russell Brunson's like, "You are the best short form storyteller I've ever seen." Was that? I think I saw that there.
Yeah, isn't that wild? That's
What
wild.
a compliment! What a great endorsement. Are there any storytelling tips, or do you maybe have a framework or something that you think through that you could give us to help us kind of think about it as we're going forward? By the way, so I'm gonna let you think about that for a second. I'm gonna say something that I found because I was scrolling through your TikTok. Sorry for all the notifications, but as I was liking everything, but you've got a very interesting way of going about it because like you won't take just an interview. You'll be like you come on and you're like, hey, listen, this is why you need to listen to this, and then you put it on there,
Hmm.
put the guest on there, which I thought was super smart. I'm probably going to steal it. Anyway, okay. What is your storytelling tips and, you know, things that you might, how you think about it, maybe a framework?
Whew, storytelling tips. I'll tell you what I'm working on constantly is what we alluded to earlier about paying attention. I don't know if you picked this up, but I get in trouble a lot on the Instagram because people are like, you move too much. I'm like, I move
Oh
in real
man.
life. Like, I am a very full bodied, like, kind of just like run into the wall, like, person. And I have to slow my brain down a lot and really work on presence and stillness. Um, this goes into storytelling. People are always looking for with everything in life, like these hacks, but it's wild. Like when you can really focus in on being like in a state where you're paying attention, what a better storyteller you become because you start noticing all the stories in your life. Because we think good stories are these crazy ass moments when really it's noticing all these little micro things throughout your day and really tuning into what that actually means. And so listening and noticing moments of change, because story is essentially just a shift and a change. So I went running and I tripped and skinned my knee and then I was limping home. I changed my state and there was something that actually happened there. Silly example. But
Right.
when we can notice these micro changes and we're developing a story from it, like there was this change that happened in my day, this shift, like maybe your kid at dinner said this thing and it changed your heart about the way you were looking at whatever. Like you identified this moment, especially with social, when telling your story, you want to start as close to that moment as possible and get to it as quickly as possible. And only add in the details to add context that matters. Matthew Dix talks about this in Storyworthy. It's the best book on
Mm.
storytelling, and I've read a lot of them, is starting as close to the beginning as possible. So I tell this story about this time that I was in a hit and run accident, which, by the way, I was the one who hit and ran. I was a punk ass
Oh no.
teenager with my sister, and we did something terrible. And I told the story on stage the other day, but I start the story with the sound of clashing metal, right there, because
Yep.
it's right when that moment happened. And then I back up and tell what's necessary to understand what happened right there. And I think, and I'll stop here, especially on social, and we have such a short amount of time, the art is really figuring out what is necessary to tell here and getting to that as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Get to it. I like the idea of having a hook or trying to find something to get kind of that attention and grab people. That's why I
I
love
hate
questions,
hooks.
by
I
the
hate
way.
when people
Do
talk
you?
about hooks. I do, because I
Why?
think they're trying to make, because they're trying to make something sexy that's not sexy.
Oh,
Now I get
interesting.
it. I do. I make hooks. Like I make hooks, and I literally have hook written on my script thing. But I think the way
Right.
that it's been presented is this cheap way to grab you, but not fulfill on the promise.
Yeah. Well, it's a way to grab attention. And so, like I watched your interview with Seth Godin from a few years ago today.
Oh god, that was so bad.
You did great. It was good, but he was great. He was helpful. But he one of the things he does, I love his talk on attention. Right, he talks about how
Mm,
attention is
mhm.
currency, and you can't abuse it. Right, and so I think what you're reacting to is sometimes people use hooks as a way to abuse it. That's one
Yes.
thing. It's different if you are using a hook to actually and then pay it off. I've been thinking about that kind of idea a lot.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
okay, if I'm going to tell you, hey, here's why creativity is, or why everybody's creative, including you. Now then I go on my thing. Okay, then that's hopefully gotten somebody curious enough to do it. But so
Yeah.
you can
Yep.
leverage curiosity. But yeah, you do. But it is a tool, and can be a blunt force weapon, right? It's depending on how you
Mhm.
use it. So
Mhm.
yeah, interesting. Okay, well that's great. So Heather, I love talking to you. I love talking to is there's always a moment when I go if I talk to a creative and I go, oh, this person is my people, right? There's somebody that
Mhm.
I love talking to. So I feel that with you. We do have a couple of questions and I want to get to those. So we're going to bring those up here in just a second. Friends, I want to remind you, you can go to YouTube. Please follow us there. I'm trying to build that as fast as we can. So if you can go to, it's just Eric Devins Live. I couldn't think of a better name. So maybe Heather's more creative. Maybe she can help me come up with a good name. Eric Devins Live. Let's go live. Let's talk and talk to amazing human beings. So go to YouTube, search Eric Devins Live. You will find me and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. That can help us out so much. Okay, we are gonna do some Q&A, and I love being able to do this. So let's toss this up here. You ready for some? We don't even have to do these rapid fire, but these
I
are
don't know. I don't
questions
know.
from the audience. So we're gonna have to move it around. Oh no, I can't move it around. Oh man. Okay, hold on, hold on. Don't you love that? This is what do we call this, Heather? Learning on
Man,
the
I've
learning on the run.
lives are not easy, so this is great.
It is. It is. I'm learning the software, and there's a few little things that I keep finding that I need to do. Okay, here's a question. Comes from
Okay.
Cindy. As a leader who is a Christian, how do you draw the lines between standing for what is right but not addressing things you are not in a relationship to lovingly address? So, like, this is a leadership address question about how you address things. So, as a leader or as a Christian in the public eye, so here's what I'm getting from that
Yeah.
particular question. She says, "Does that make sense?" Here's what I think. I've struggled with this a lot, actually. Tell me if you have. As somebody who's putting out content, is my content a full endorsement of the human being, of the person? Now, I know one ministry that's here in Colorado. and they've taken me through some of their process a little bit, and I know that they believe it is, and probably for them, having somebody on their show is a full scale endorsement, and they've taken it very seriously about, does this person have anything going on that we should know about? Is their theology good? That something we can endorse. I don't actually take it that way. So as a leader on a podcast like this, I don't know, Heather. I don't know everything you've ever done. I'm not endorsing everything you've ever said,
I was
but
in
I
a
do.
hit and run when I was 16. I
There you
mean,
go. Yeah,
I'm being honest.
but presumably you learned from that, and maybe there's some interesting
Yes, I've never done
threads
it
to
again.
that story for sure, right? But as a leader, so let's talk about just being a leader in a
Mhm.
social, like in a building an audience kind of setting.
Sure.
Do you have any kind of thoughts about endorsing or bringing platforming people? That how do you
A
think about it?
lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I've missed the mark sometimes. There's been a couple of times I've brought somebody on, I've read their content or consumed their content and had a great conversation, and then I'll get a DM from someone and say XYZ about them, and you don't, and it's really difficult because you don't know necessarily what's true and what's not. For me, um, I will literally work myself into not doing anything when I'm trying to control that so much. And I'm not saying not put a lot of reverence and respect and so forth. But at the end of the day, we have to just do our due diligence and follow our gut. Because also on the same side of things, I've had people who are like the most outstanding, whatever, whatever, whatever. And then I communicate with them one on one. I'm like, oh, there's something off. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so as someone who's deeply empathic and very into like listening, I trust my gut, and sometimes I'm really, really wrong and I miss the mark. And also, I see a lot of people using the fear of what you just shared from keeping them from starting things because they're worried about making a mistake, and they will make a mistake. Um, but at what cost are we going to let that control us?
100%. Yeah, that's a great point. You can let's say you do make a mistake, and uh, you bring somebody on your show that is maybe has some allegations. Let's say we'll just go that way. Well, you can always be honest about it. Like it's actually it's
Mm-hmm.
still true. Online honesty is the best policy. So if you
Mm-hmm.
say to just address it to your it could be a social post or whatever. Hey, this is what I believe. I think the conversation stands as a great conversation, but also these are the allegations that came out, and you can make your own judgment.
Yeah.
So what I want to say is you need to trust your audience, also to know that
Mm-hmm.
as well, and
Mm-hmm.
make their own judgments.
Yeah.
There is platforming is a much bigger conversation. We don't have to get into all that, but it is a sticky wicket right now. So so Cindy also said, I'm just going to put this up here because we talked about it so much. We all create all day, every day, which how we speak, dress, or don't speak, dress, smile, choose to laugh, not laugh, etc. And I think that's true. We do create all the time. Let's go to another. Here we got a question from YouTube. Love that. Okay, so I wonder what stifles creativity is. Oh, if what stifles creativity is that we have stopped dreaming or imagining what it could be. Does that ring true? And how can we help others imagine or dream to help spark creativity? That's hitting
You know
something. What do you got?
what's so wild about that question is I went on a big deep dive at the beginning of the year trying to answer the question around imagination, like how to develop imagination, how to nurture it. And I cannot believe how little information and teaching is actually out there. There are a couple of books. There's a couple things specifically with like Disney Imagineers and
Yep.
Pixar community and so forth. But I was really shocked that there's not more about how to cultivate imagination. And again, it sounds airy fairy and weird, but when you think about folks who can just come up with things and they just seem like they're really in tune, like it just came out of nowhere, or they're able to stretch an idea a little bit further. That is a skill, man. Um, and it's like, I have an 8-year-old, and I can kind of see already that kind of being pulled out of her just by culture and society of,
Yeah.
this growing up thing. And I'm approaching 40 pretty soon, and I just feel like I'm like reaching behind me in my childhood. I'm like, no, like,
Yeah.
don't go away, play, imagination, and just stretching the idea of what's possible. But then it goes back again to, well, what if this doesn't work? You know what I mean? Like, we try to
Yeah.
control outcomes so much. Like, you at the beginning of this, you had this idea, like, I'm going to read this book and just try it. And the willingness to do that, silly little beginning or whatever, bravo to you. And that's a small thing, but we get so much in these routines that we don't
Yep.
just try stuff on for size. You know what I mean? So I'm fascinated by imagination, and I haven't quite figured out um, how to tap into that. I'm listening to a lot from Pixar folks.
Yeah. You interviewed somebody from Pixar, I saw.
I did. I
Yeah.
did.
I don't
Yeah.
have the name at hand, but yeah, that was good.
Matthew
I,
Lunn, Best Story Wins. Incredible book too.
oh, great. Yeah, that's good. I think that's it. Guys, thanks for the questions. I really appreciate it. Heather, this has been so good. I appreciate the thoughts on creativity, on what we got to do to get over it. Just get started, I think, is what we said for the most part, but also the empathy for like, hey, sometimes it's hard, man, and it stinks to do it on your own. But
I
friends,
have a question.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Somebody here on the Instagram over here asked one.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna
Oh, bring it up. Yeah, you can't put it on the screen, but
Jesse.
you can ask it.
I can't. Yeah, Jesse says a lot of your content is just you in front of a camera in a book. Do you have a team helping out in your videos, or are you producing it alone? I'm producing it alone, and the reason, Eric, I wanted to answer this question is, even if you have the resources to outsource some of your creative work,
Mhm.
I always encourage people to get dirty and do a little bit of it yourself, even if you don't do it long term, because there's so much storytelling to learn when it comes to editing and setting up your own camera and figuring out all that. There's just like these micro things that I don't know if you can really like appreciate without doing it yourself. So even if you can afford it, and I know from a scalability perspective, it's better to offboard 100%. But if you can do things on your own, like, don't be afraid to get dirty with it. Down and dirty.
Right. I'm so glad you said that. Yes, I couldn't agree more. There absolutely is value to that. I can't. This has been a couple years ago. Maybe it was at that one in Nashville that we were at Podcast Movement together. I saw John Lee Dumas, who's like,
Yeah.
revolutionized the industry, maybe. And somebody asked him, "Hey, do you still do your own editing?" And he said yes. And this is like years and years after he had been way more than he could have had it done. He said, "I know that I don't have to, but I just love doing it." Right? There's a connection to my guest in it, and there's something that I can make it the way I know I want it. That's
Lindsey
that,
Sterling still does. You know Lindsey Sterling, the
yeah,
violinist?
yeah.
All her music videos, she still edits her music videos.
Really? Wow.
She
See,
makes her costumes with a freaking needle, and she edits her. Yeah, and she's a
wow.
touring musician. Yeah.
So what if we put aside the whole idea of like I have to scale or offload everything in order to be successful? What if it was I have to do the work in order to be successful, and that's the fun part?
The preacher man, people say you aren't in ministry anymore. That was a preaching moment. This is church. Amen.
There it
Good.
is. Oh, Heather, I'm going to put up here. So your podcast, the best place to go is heatherparady.com/BTS. What, we didn't talk about that. Is it behind the scenes? Is that what is?
Yeah. Yeah. Every week I share behind the scenes of what I'm working on, and it's unedited, and I share it with my email list just to kind of demystify what I'm doing and just the reality of it, that it's not polished, edited stuff that I'm making all the time. It's me in pajamas with, my bubbly, trying to figure out like, how is this content going to work? And
Yeah.
I share all of it.
Okay. So if you're inspired, friends, by our conversation, by what you heard from Heather, by the fact that you have a creative idea and you're like, I'm going to go do it, but let me see the messy side on the back end, heatherparady.com/BTS. The
Thank you.
podcast is Unconventional Leaders, which you can get both in audio form and YouTube. I watched several on YouTube,
Thank you.
which is fantastic. Definitely recommend that you go there. So thanks for being here, Heather. I appreciate it so much. I
Thank
am
you.
definitely a
This was
fan
great.
of you.
Appreciate it.
Friends, I thank you for being here. Again, subscribe on YouTube. Thank you for asking questions. Those of you did, really appreciate it. I want to tell you one last thing. This is a show about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Guess what? You're an ordinary human being, but you can do extraordinary things. Sometimes humans, you're only human, right? But sometimes humans do extraordinary things. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll see you next time.